Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're about to unpack one of the most eye-opening financial journeys of our modern era. Let's just dive right into it, shall we? We are looking at the epic biographical journey of Robert Kiyosaki. This is a guy who essentially decoded the secrets of true wealth and then shared them with the entire world. But you know what's fascinating? His journey didn't start in some fancy Wall Street boardroom. Actually, it started with a really profound childhood observation. Picture this for a second. It's Hawaii, 1947. Young Robert is looking at the two main father figures in his life. Over on the left, we've got his biological father, who he later famously calls his poor dad. Now, this man was highly educated, right? He had a PhD from the University of Hawaii, worked as a super respected government officer in the education department. Yet, despite having a stable, predictable salary, he was constantly stressed out at the end of every single month. He was literally just anxiously waiting for his paycheck so he could clear his bills. But then on the right side, we have his friend Mike's dad, the rich dad. This guy had absolutely zero college degrees. He wasn't highly educated in that traditional sense at all, but he was a growing businessman who was slowly building an absolute empire in Hawaii. So Robert was completely baffled. He's looking at this thinking, why on earth is the highly educated man struggling while the uneducated man is building immense wealth? And that confusion, that became Robert's call to adventure. Just like any normal kids, Robert and his friend Mike were getting frustrated. All the other kids had these fancy toys and cool comic books, and, well, they didn't. They wanted to know the secret. So they decided to go straight to the source. They marched right up to Mike's dad, the businessman, and asked him this incredibly blunt question. How do you actually make money? Now, Rich Dad didn't just hand them a textbook answer. No way. Instead, he put them through a totally grueling first trial. He offered them jobs in one of his shops, making them stack shelves and lay tiles. But here's the catch. He paid them a whopping 10 cents an hour. Yeah. After a few weeks of this incredibly boring, super low-paying manual labor, Robert was absolutely furious. He felt totally exploited. He went back to Rich Dad, completely ready to quit, just complaining that he was barely making pennies for his hard work. But Rich Dad just smiled at him. He explained to a very frustrated Robert that the anger he was feeling in that exact moment, that's how most people feel for their entire lives. He then laid out the three fundamental financial mindsets that basically drive society. First, you have the poor, who work simply to survive. Second, the middle class, who earn, spend, and then just repeat that exact cycle endlessly. And third, the rich, who completely flip the script. The rich don't just work for money. They figure out how to make their money work for them. Rich Dad gave this terrifying, endless cycle a name. He called it the rat race. I want you to imagine a hamster running endlessly on a little treadmill. The hamster is running faster and faster, completely convinced it's moving forward, right? But in reality, it's staying in the exact same spot. A little more salary usually just means a little more spending, leaving that person fundamentally trapped in the exact same position. It's an illusion of progress. Let's break down the tragic reality of how this loop actually plays out. Step 1, you wake up. Step 2, you go grind for 8 to 9 hours for someone else. Step 3, your paycheck arrives and immediately the bills attack. Step 4, you run out of money and the panic sets in. Step 5, you just repeat the cycle until the next paycheck arrives. Hearing this, young Robert had a really stark realization. This exact loop was the very thing keeping his highly educated biological dad financially trapped his entire life. All right, let's get into the next phase, the turning point: assets versus liabilities. So Robert literally begged to know how to escape this treadmill. That's when Rich Dad introduced him to the absolute most crucial financial distinction of his entire journey. And honestly, it's beautifully simple when you strip away all that complicated financial jargon. An asset is simply something that puts money into your pocket without requiring your constant daily involvement. On the flip side, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. That's it. It's literally just a measure of which direction your cash is flowing. To make sure Robert really got it, Rich Dad used the Socratic method. And you know what? I want to turn that mirror on you right now. Take a look at this question. Is your car an asset? Because society loves to tell us that our big purchases are assets. Robert totally thought his family's car was an asset too. But let's do a quick reality check based on our brand new definition. Your personal car? It sits in the garage for the vast majority of the month. It constantly needs petrol. It demands out-of-pocket maintenance and hefty service fees. Money is continuously flowing out of your pocket just to keep it running. Therefore, unless you are actively renting that car out to generate some kind of income, it is not an asset. It is absolutely a liability. It's draining your cash. This realization totally shattered Robert's delusions, and it led to this absolutely legendary quote from his mentor. He said, "The rich buy assets, the poor buy nothing, the middle class buy liabilities and think they are assets." This single powerful sentence fundamentally rewired how Robert viewed literally everything he would ever purchase from that day forward. Now for Section 3, the trials, overcoming business failures. Because as we all know, knowing the theory and actually executing it are two very different things. When Robert returned from serving as a U.S. Marine pilot in Vietnam in 1973, his real battle began in the business world. He openly defied his biological dad's desperate wishes for him to just get a PhD and find a stable government job. Instead, he started his first business, selling nylon wallets. He was convinced it would be a huge hit. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The business completely failed. He lost a massive amount of money, stopped eating properly, and spiraled into a really deep depression. Feeling utterly defeated, Robert went back to his rich dad, fully expecting some pity. But he didn't get any, not at all. Instead, his mentor just looked at him and asked this incredibly powerful question: "What did you learn from this?" This forced Robert to stop wallowing in his misery and actually analyze his failure. He realized he had just learned incredibly valuable, hard-won lessons about understanding market needs and the strict, unforgiving reality of cash flow. Even after trying again, and failing again, Rich Dad gave him a masterclass on building true expertise. He reminded Robert that back in school, he only got good grades in math and science because he actually spent time learning them. You can't just copy someone else's business and expect to win. You've got to put in the work. Step 1, read books on this specific topic. Step 2, consult with people who already have real experience. Step 3, attend seminars. And Step 4, start small, but this time start with actual, undeniable expertise. Armed with this entirely new mindset, we arrive at Section 4, the final boss, the tax secret. So Robert had finally applied his deep learning to real estate, and he flipped a small property for a massive 40% profit. Huge win, right? But as he celebrated, he realized a huge chunk of his earnings was instantly wiped out by government taxes. He went back to his mentor, who then broke down this incredible financial literacy sequence. This is exactly how the wealthy legally structure their money. If you're an employee, the sequence goes like this. You earn money, the government immediately takes its tax, and you are forced to spend only what's left. But if you operate as a business, the sequence completely flips. You earn money, you spend on your business expenses first, and you only get taxed on whatever remainder is left over. The sequence is slightly altered, but guys, the impact over a lifetime is literally millions of dollars saved. And that brings us to our final section, the climax, true financial freedom. By aggressively building passive income through carefully selected real estate assets and utilizing that legal corporate structuring we just talked about, Robert's life completely transformed. Let's look at the timeline. In 1973, he defies his father to start a business. Fast forward to 1994, and alongside his wife, Kim, Robert was able to retire completely at the young age of 47. The cash flow from his assets completely covered his lifestyle. And what's truly sobering here is that at the exact same time Robert retired in his 40s, his biological father, the poor dad, was old, tired, and still working his government job. 3 years after retiring, in 1997, Robert decided to write a book about this entire journey. But get this, it is the ultimate underdog story. When he and Kim shopped it around, literally every traditional publisher rejected it. They didn't think he was famous enough to sell books. So what did they do? They decided to completely bypass the gatekeepers and just self-publish it with the help of a friend. And that decision led to this absolutely staggering number, 32 million. That is how many copies of Rich Dad, Poor Dad have been sold to date. It's spread like wildfire and has been translated across more than 40 different languages around the globe. Let's do some quick math. If we estimate just a modest $3 royalty per book, that translates to an unbelievable $96 million in earnings. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 810 crore rupees. The man who learned how to make money work for him truly, undeniably earned his title as the godfather of finance. We have covered a lot of ground today, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. I want you to literally look around your house right now. Look at your possessions, your car, your gadgets, the whole shebang. ask yourself honestly, how many of those things are actually putting money into your pocket today? If the answer is none, well, it might just be time to step off the treadmill. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I genuinely hope this sparks your very own journey to financial